Welcome to the 700 Club. Let's go over to the CBN newsroom for today's top stories.
Gordon, Nevada Democrats are preparing to caucus tomorrow, but many party leaders are discouraged after Michael Bloomberg's performance in the debate Wednesday night and concerned Bernie Sanders will be nominated but can't beat President Trump. Jennifer Wishon has the story.
As caucus goers prepare to support their favorite candidate Saturday, Democratic Party officials won't commit to releasing the results on the same day as they try to lower expectations following the chaos that marked the Iowa caucuses. This after a raucous NBC News debate Wednesday that left Michael Bloomberg badly bruised in the eyes of many Democratic strategists. Some party leaders hoped Bloomberg would emerge as an alternative to Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders. Instead, many Democrats called his performance pathetic, saying he was ill-prepared to respond to attacks from other candidates.
We are not going to beat Donald Trump with a man who has who knows how many non-disclosure agreements and the drip, drip, drip of stories of women saying they have been harassed and discriminated against.
As the primary season continues with a full slate of candidates, the debate exposed deep fractures in the party, including on key issues like the economy and health care.
I believe in democratic socialism for working people, not billionaires, health care for all.
We're not going to throw out capitalism. We tried that. Other countries tried that. It was called communism, and it just didn't work.
I'm actually less concerned about the lack of transparency on Sanders' personal health than I am about the lack of transparency on how to pay for his health care plan.
I'm the guy the president turned to and said, go get the votes for Obamacare. And I noticed what everybody's talking about is the plan that I first introduced.
While Democrats duke it out, a new Quinnipiac poll shows a tight race in key swing states. In Wisconsin, Trump leads, while in Pennsylvania and Michigan, Democratic candidates have an edge. In all three states, voters say the economy is their most important issue. Following the contentious debate that damaged the Bloomberg brand, the president had a spring in his step during a packed campaign rally in Colorado.
I don't know if anybody watched last night's debate. It got very big ratings. And you know what? Mini Mike didn't do well last night. I was going to send him a note saying it's not easy doing what I do, is it? I became president because of the debates, because unlike Mini Mike, I could answer questions.
After Nevada, candidates have a week to campaign for votes before the South Carolina primary a week from Saturday. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
In other news, the number of new coronavirus COVID-19 cases is still falling in China. But there is disturbing information about the transport of Americans with coronavirus. The Washington Post reported 14 American passengers from the Diamond Princess cruise ship in Japan who tested positive for the disease were allowed to fly home with others who were healthy. Here's Eric Phillips.
The news that China reported just under 400 new cases in the last 24 hours would appear positive, since the previous day's number was 1,700. In all, there are about 75,000 reported cases there. Twice now, China has changed how they count daily new infections, so there's suspicion that the latest figure could be even larger. That's why the U.S. is closely watching Chinese media outlets operating on American soil to see if they are spreading misinformation from the regime. Meanwhile, 2 former passengers aboard the Diamond Princess cruise ship have died, bringing the number of virus-related deaths in Japan to 3.
I'm looking forward to seeing my baby boy.
A much different story in the U.S., where those in quarantine for the past 14 days are now being released.
57 people arrived here for quarantine, and 57 healthy people are going back to their communities. And the really, really important thing to know is that these people pose no health threat to their communities.
Even with the total number of reported cases in the U.S. now around 30, officials believe the threat to the American population and economy are low, but still present.
The question for us really is, what will be the effects on the U.S. economy? Will they be persistent? Will they be material? And we know that there will be some, very likely be some effects on the United States. I think it's just too early to say. We have to resist the temptation to speculate on this.
President Trump is considering Georgia Republican Congressman Doug Collins to be his new director of national intelligence. The DNI oversees the U.S. intelligence agencies. The president was reportedly angry with the current acting director after he was told intelligence officials had told a congressional briefing that Russia was intervening in the election on his side. Trump had already appointed Richard Grenell as the acting DNI. Grenell is the current ambassador to Germany. He explained in a previous interview with CBN News that he's not overly popular with Germany because of his staunch support of the president.
Short term, in the immediacy, that changing the status quo is always messy, that people get comfortable and they don't want to change the status quo. So I got good perspective. I'm a cancer survivor. And I have to tell you that when you wake up and you've defeated cancer and you're looking at life in a different way on a daily basis, bad media coverage or critical media coverage or complainers from the side, that doesn't bother me.
Some conservatives supported the move as a signal that the administration would be watching over, if not cleaning out, deep state intelligence officials who try to undermine the president. A tricky commute this morning for folks in North Carolina and parts of Virginia. Black ice on roads, bridges, and overpasses, the main concern as a winter storm wraps up. The storm dropped 2 to 5 inches on parts of southeastern Virginia around CBN. While there's very little accumulation on the roads, below freezing temperatures are creating icy conditions. About 10,000 customers are without power in North Carolina and Virginia. A World War II-era cross will remain standing on public property in Pensacola, Florida, where it's been since 1941. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in favor of the cross and against the Freedom from Religion Foundation. It sued in 2016 to have the cross removed, claiming it violated the Constitution. This despite the overwhelming public support for it. Beckett Law represented the American Legion in the case. Attorneys say the court ruled the cross is constitutional because it had become embedded in the fabric of the Pensacola community, and removing it could be seen as aggressively hostile to religion. February is Black History Month, and one of the most influential figures in Black history is Richard Allen, a former slave who fought for his people's freedom during the Revolutionary War and the founder of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Paul Strand tells us about the man some call America's Black founding father.
So imagine Richard Allen met the Lord Jesus Christ here in Philadelphia, witnessed to his master, who also got saved, turned around and freed Richard, who then found the African Methodist Episcopal Church right here on this land, which he bought, making it a piece of property held by African Americans longer than any other piece of land in all of America. The charismatic Allen was so prominent and popular by then, George Washington helped him buy the property. This fine house of worship now sits on the land, but Allen had to start the African Methodist Episcopal in a much more humble structure.
He buys an old blacksmith's shop, and he hauls it down the road and he sets it up and it becomes its first church.
Dr. Peter Lilback studies and writes about faith's influence on the founding of America. He says Allen's life was so dedicated to Christianity that Mother Bethel AME Church didn't want to let him go, even in death.
There's a crypt at the bottom that commemorates this founding father of faith.
Allen, like most African Americans, faced discrimination and racism in the nation's early days. That's why he wanted to start a church specifically for African Americans and fought across many decades for their rights and freedom. But when a deadly disease hit Philadelphia in 1793, Lilback says Allen and his black brothers and sisters showed amazing love to those who'd shown them hate.
The yellow fever epidemic breaks out, and people are dying. Some 5,000 people died. But guess who's taking care of all the people, the dying and the sick, and preserving their property? Members of the Old Mother Bethel Church, the African Americans.
Lilback and other history-minded members of the Providence Forum were so impressed with these Christians, the Forum made the Old Mother Bethel Church one of the stops on its Faith and Freedom tour through historic Philadelphia.
These two men, these African Americans, showed the best of the gospel in courage and faithfulness, and they've launched a movement that have touched millions of people through the year, right here from Philadelphia.
After its first year, Allen's church had just 121 congregants. But less than 90 years later, the first independent black denomination in America had 400,000. Today, some 2.5 million AME members worship in 39 countries spread across 5 continents. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Philadelphia.